Hi. You are watching. The story begins with our main character, named Hyun-sung, falling from a building, shocked and wondering why he has fallen off of the rooftop. It is such a shame. He was going to graduate soon, and he endured all those hardships for this, so he doesn't understand why it all just lead to this. However, what he is sure about is that this is the day he went to sleep permanently. 3 months later, inside the hospital's ward, the relative of Hyun-sung suggests to their grandmother to pull the plug on him since he was diagnosed as a vegetative person, which the grandmother doesn't like to hear, because she still believes that her grandson will soon wake up, while Hyun-sung can hear all the things they are saying. At a later time, the grandma sits close to Hyun-sung while holding his hand, trying to wake him up while she wonders how did this happen to him. Hearing his grandma worried for him, he tries to comfort her, but he knows that his voice couldn't reach her, so he was more determined to wake up soon. However, in this dark world, there wasn't a thing he was allowed to do, so a few more days have passed. His grandma was still beside him, but she is sadder than before, because those bastards keep telling her to give up on him, because they don't understand why she doesn't want to do that. She took care of him since he lost his parents, so there is no way she will give up on him ever, and she still believes that he will wake up, so she asks Hyun-sung to give him a sign that he is alive, even for just once. Meanwhile, Hyun-sung is desperately telling his body to move, but wasn't able to. Then a few years passed. He was visited by his younger brother, telling him that he couldn't hold on much longer, because those bastards who did this to his brother were now targeting him. At the same time, their grandma started working in a restaurant to earn money for his hospital fee and ended up injuring herself. So he asks his brother what he is supposed to do, because now he only wished for his brother to have just died. They wouldn't have suffered so much if he just did. Now helpless and crying his eyes out, he asks his brother to wake up and just stand the fuck up, while Hyun-sung has now lost hope to ever stand up, or even die at his own will, because he couldn't even shed tears. So now he is delusional while thinking that it is all just a dream, and if he endures just a little more, he is sure he will wake up from this dream. 3 years later, he was still in a coma, noticing that his little brother Hyun-jin hadn't visited him for a long time. He then overheard the nurses are overjoyed that his grandma couldn't visit him anymore, because now they could increase the volume of the TV. Hearing them take his circumstances lightly, he felt rage within him. He then remembered the faces of everyone that had wronged him, even those teachers who were covering those bastards up. So if he somehow gets a miracle of going back to that time, he will destroy every single one of them. Now rage in his mind, he is thinking about how to deal with the people who turned him this way, and making it as brutal as he possibly could. But beating them up on the verge of death wasn't enough. Not an act of simple revenge like this could satisfy him. From the beginning till the end, regardless of the means and methods, he is going to make a plan to thoroughly root them out, so that they can never crawl up again, so that they face more pain than he suffered. With this, he thinks of a perfect plan that will destroy everything they got. But 10 years have passed. He was still bedridden, no one with him, and all of this does not matter to him anymore. So he begs someone, anyone, to end this life of his. And so, he opened his eye, only to be greeted by himself. Talking to himself somehow made him feel relieved, and before he could process what he said to himself, he noticed that it was morning already, and he was now in a familiar place. Realizing that he was back inside his classroom, he assumes that this must be another dream about that day. So he pinched his face to check if it was real, but to his surprise, it hurts. Still, the simple pinch on the cheek has not convinced him yet, so he gets his pen and inflicts pain on himself. With this, he is convinced that he has come back to the past, but before he can celebrate his return, his attention was diverted towards the bully from their class, busy harassing someone, just because he was told to do something himself, which he was triggered, assuming the other kid thinks he was incompetent to do anything by himself. At the same time, shock was written on Hyun-sung's face, since he realized this situation is the starting point of all his pain. So without hesitations, he stood up from his seat and approached the bully, to tell him to stop. Now that the bully's attention was redirected towards him, he started talking smack, and threatened Hyun-sung. But before he could finish his provocations, Hyun-sung excitedly connected his fist to the bully's face, because he came back to the moments he had been wishing for so long. Before all of this happened, we are brought to the day when everything in his life changed. He can still vividly remember what happened that day, Park Min-chul was listening to the class half-heartedly. He was a typical case of a bully who harassed his friends, and he enjoyed the game called Legend Online. So he then decided to approach Lee Jung-min. Since Lee Jung-min was smart, Park Min-chul assumed that he was good at playing games. And that day, Lee Jung-min became Park Min-chul's game shuttle. And because of this, Lee Jung-min, who was at the top of his class, began dropping from the list. And because of enduring Park Min-chul's request to pour his personal money to buy game items, Lee Jung-min's stress reached the tip of his head, and so he asked Park Min-chul to do it himself. That day, it was his first time seeing violence committed in front of his very eyes. He didn't want to cause any trouble, but he recalled that Lee Jung-min kindly helped him with his studies every now and then, so he just couldn't watch Lee Jung-min being beaten up without any friend helping. But before he could act, someone from his friend group stopped him and advised him not to be involved with Park Min-chul. He knew what he was talking about, but he was always good at sports and didn't fall behind in the boys' pecking order. And Park Min-chul's name wasn't so intimidating for him, so he still went to deal with him. Since the teacher came shortly after, the situation was roughly handled. But ever since that day, Park Min-chul's gang began to harass him like hell. Every day, he was dragged by Park Min-chul's gang, and without a day to recover, he was beaten until he was a mess. Even after school, there were days when he could not sleep due to their bullying, such as running errands for games, and there was no other way to describe his situation but hell. However, him returning means all things that happened will be different now that he successfully punched Park Min-chul's face. Everyone was surprised about it. Even Park Min-chul couldn't believe it. So when he turned to look at him, Hyun-sung grabbed his head in order to knock it to the desk. Now blood covered his mouth. His fellow classmates couldn't believe that Hyun-sung was always this badass. However, he wasn't done teaching the bitch a lesson. Therefore, Hyun-sung strikes him again. Because this moment, this situation, he engraved it in his head as he fell comatose. And Hyun-sung can easily dominate Park Min-chul because he knows his fighting style solely relies on his physique. And Park Min-chul is not used to being hit, so he is bound to collapse if he gives up his first attack. And that is why Hyun-sung strikes first. And the moment he tries to react after getting punched in the face, Hyun-sung also calculated grabbing his hair and slamming his face right onto the desk, because he endlessly simulated this whole scenario for the past 10 years. And even this next move, kicking his face, knocking him to the wall, Park Min-chul won't know how much he has waited for this moment. So Hyun-sung does not care whether Min-chul was beaten to death. And if he raises his face, Hyun-sung will kick him in the face. If he blocks with his hands, he will break his hands. However, before Hyun-sung could deal damage even further, a chair was suddenly thrown towards him, which he successfully dodges it without any problems. So he turns towards the one who did it, only to see a bunch of hooligans ordering him to stop, to which he asks them what they are going to do if he does not stop. Seeing that he doesn't look scared even for a bit, Lee Jung-min-ho thinks if Hyun-sung has gone insane. And because Kang Chang-suk is the strongest in the group, he didn't hesitate to approach Hyun-sung. But before they could start the fight, one of the students informed them that the teacher is approaching. Therefore they decide to go back to their rooms and finish it later. But before they leave, Kang Chang-suk threatens Hyun-sung, telling him that he is fucked as soon as he finds him after classes. Now that the class started, Park Min-chul was processing what happened to him, and couldn't believe what just happened. So he was enraged and threatening Hyun-sung in his mind, while thinking of ways to deal with Hyun-sung after the classes had ended. And the other guys are going to gather here once class ends, so he is more than confident to deal with him. Now he assumes that he was beaten by a nerd only because he was caught off guard, and he wasn't planning to bully Hyun-sung. Even though Hyun-sung was the class president and used to intervene every now and then, he never crossed the line, so he never had to mess with him. But now that Hyun-sung crossed it first, he is sure to leave him half dead as soon as the class ends. Meanwhile, the other bullies are looking at the clock waiting for the class to end, talking about what happened, and thinking of why Hyun-sung acted up as if he had backups. Still, whatever the reason was, Kim Hyun-sung looked down upon them in front of everyone. If they left it like that, the other guys would also start taking them easily. So even if they received the request, they decide to use this opportunity to trample on him for sure, so that Kim Hyun-sung will never look at them with those arrogant eyes ever again. Soon after the classes have ended, the teacher leaves, so Park Min-chul hurriedly stands up to deal with Hyun-sung. But to his surprise, Hyun-sung's feet were already flying toward his face, knocking him out for the second time, and before he could drop to the ground, Hyun-sung catches his head, to prevent him from fainting right away, and tell him face to face that they should continue from where they left off. With this, Min-chul was dumbfounded, as he wonders why Hyun-sung wants to fight them. At the same time, the other bullies stood up, and went straight towards Hyun-sung's class, but as soon as they arrived, they were shocked to see people gathering outside. Now Jung Min-ho realized what was happening, therefore, they immediately ran towards the scene. Arriving at Hyun-sung's class, they were shocked to see that Min-chul's face was beaten up so badly already, but they were more surprised when Hyun-sung greeted them, and was waiting for their arrival. Seeing that he managed to beat up their colleague, Chang-suk charges at him, but little did he know, Hyun-sung had endlessly simulated this scenario when he was comatose for the past 10 years, and he had no problem with taking care of Park Min-chul, but the biggest problem he had was this guy, Kang Chang-suk. It was easy to beat Park Min-chul, but he couldn't find a way to beat this guy with the strength he had at the moment. However, the answer is simple, and that is doing things he couldn't think of doing before. So he just had to take a piece of metal and shove it into Chang-suk's temple, because fair play is inconsequential, and to achieve his revenge, he has no reason or time to be picky, so he follows up another attack, since no matter which kind of workout Chang-suk has been doing, he is sure even he can't handle getting hit by an iron. Now that Chang-suk had lost consciousness, he threw the trash toward them, leaving the other conscious bullies completely in shock, but before they could even process what happened, Hyun-sung used this as a chance to use all his weight to tackle Cho Yeon-taek, so that if he drops him down like so, he won't ever be able to react to the next attack, and he doesn't care if Jung Min-ho is going to attack him from behind, because it is better to finish Cho Yeon-taek once and for all, for him to win a battle where he is outnumbered. With that, he left Cho Yeon-taek all bloodied up, and unconscious on the ground, without Hyun-sung blinking even once. However, exerting this much effort in dealing with these guys, he noticed that his body is not fit enough to follow his plans through. Nonetheless, he can't stop here, not yet, because there is one more douchebag remaining. While Jung Min-ho is stupefied even to move, since he is completely caught off guard by Hyun-sung's strength, because he assumed Hyun-sung is just as strong enough to be out of the bully's target list, but now that he saw it with his own eyes, the Hyun-sung before him is just like a monster. With the situation that he was in, he knew that he couldn't beat Hyun-sung by himself, and as he was now in the range of Hyun-sung's fist, he couldn't stop his hands from shaking. So when Hyun-sung went to strike him, he flinched, but luckily for Jung Min-ho, the teacher arrived and was able to stop the fight before his face got all juiced up. With this outcome, Jung Min-ho regained his smile. Since there are 3 students who have ended up bloody, Jung Min-ho was sure that Hyun-sung was in trouble. Inside the teacher's office, the teacher scolds Hyun-sung, telling him that there are boundaries, while planning to avoid his responsibilities as an advisor and putting all the blame on Hyun-sung. But before he could finish his threats, Hyun-sung calmly tells him that there is no need for him to overreact, because it is not like this is the first incident of violence in school. Hearing this left the teacher dumbfounded. Therefore Hyun-sung tells him to do the thing he is good. He can just use that skill of his, burying the case without escalating things, burying this up so he won't get in trouble. With this statement, the teacher reacts violently, which Hyun-sung already calculated, because, just like he expected, this is the reason why he died. He didn't die just because of the harassment alone. The cowardly adults who were busy keeping their nose out played a big part on it too. He clearly remembers how Kim Young-chul, the advisor of the first section, lived as a piece of trash who couldn't even be called a human being. So before Kim Young-chul could slap him again, Hyun-sung advises him to lower his voice, and if he won't, he can't help but tell others that he has been receiving bribes from his parents, especially from Jung Min-ho's parents. Even if it is not that, there are other things he can say. For example, an affair with the English teacher. Now that Hyun-sung sees that his words finally went through his teacher's head, he tells him to better fucking stop, and calls him a piece of shit. In Hyun-sung's previous life, after enduring bullying somehow, he finally came to a decision. He knew it wasn't that good of a solution, but he went to look for the teacher, thinking he needed the backing of an adult. However, the teacher didn't do much, believing Park Min-chul's reason, telling him that they were just joking around a bit, and since he has quite a big build, Hyun-sung must have misunderstood that he was bullying him. And for that reason, they ended up settling the matter just like that, while Hyun-sung was sweating like crazy since he knew what would happen next. After leaving the teacher's office, because of what just Hyun-sung did, they are as pissed as ever, and Park Min-chul orders Hyun-sung to follow them. Soon after, Hyun-sung is getting beat up by the group, while he is cursing at his teacher, since he lets him down, thinking the teacher was just ignorant and believed the bully's lies. However, as he was getting beaten up, he saw his teacher, and since the teacher saw the violence with his own eyes, Hyun-sung believes that the teacher would realize the severity of the situation, and definitely help him, but his assumptions were dead wrong, because the teacher only feigned ignorance of his situation, and turned to the other side. With this, Hyun-sung realized that his teacher, Kim Young-chul, was a coward, and he only later found out that he is also a scumbag who used to accept money from parents, and Jung Min-ho's parents were one of the sources of his income. He had no intention of solving this matter in the first place. After that, he tried his best to solve this matter, even if he had to do it alone. Even knowing that he couldn't win this fight, swinging his fist, he struggled to escape this hell-like reality. And so that day was particularly violent. However, with his retaliation, Minho's parents have the audacity to complain to what happened to their son, making his grandma apologize to them. At the same time, Jung Min-ho happily blames him because of what happened, completely turning the situation against him. Because of the intervention of adults, it was an area where he couldn't do anything without his parents. Even on the school violence committee, he took the punishment alone, and Park Min-chul's gang went through their school life without any problems. Since then, falling into a coma, he only realized later about the fact that he can't exact revenge with mere strength. Even adult intervention must be completely resolved, so that he can take revenge in the true sense of the word. Now we're brought back to the present, with Kim Young-chul's face filled with shock from what Hyun-sung has just said. However, he tried to scoff it off, thinking Hyun-sung was bluffing. Unfortunately for him, Hyun-sung was deadly serious, as he advises him that from now on, when he speaks to him, he should think carefully before he utters any word. And in order to take away all the doubts in Kim Young-chul, Hyun-sung tells him that he knows Kim Young-chul was introduced to Jung Min-ho's parents through a university senior, so he has been taking care of Jung Min-ho even before he entered this school, and as a reward, he received a payment every month. And also, he has been having an affair with the English teacher, a married woman with 3 children, and they often go to Motel M. Seeing Kim Young-chul's face, Hyun-sung knows that Kim Young-chul finally realizes that he wasn't bluffing, so he asks him if he should say more. And since Kim Young-chul is surprised by this, he can't respond, so Hyun-sung continues insulting him, berating Young-chul that he has lived such a dirty life, to the extent that this isn't even the tip of the iceberg. If all of his malpractices are revealed, his life as a teacher will be difficult, so he advises him to don't even think of considering this as nonsense. And if he is going to act like that, even he has to quit this school, he is still going to trample on his life, leaving Kim Young-chul stupefied even to respond. Hyun-sung knows all of this, since by the time he went up to the 3rd year, Kim Young-chul's private affairs were revealed. His wife came to school, slapped him refreshingly, and stamped the divorce papers, and it was later found that Kim Young-chul's family was relatively well off, and it was also rumored that everything that could be called property belonged to his wife. So if that is true, he is certain Kim Young-chul fears his affairs being revealed the most. With all this, Hyun-sung was so sure that there was no way this blackmail won't work. So after Kim Young-chul completely processed what circumstances he was in, he apologized to Hyun-sung, and asked him what to do. So without hesitations, Hyun-sung tells him that if he wants to shut him up, he suggests to keep up the attitude he has been living with. But this statement confuses Kim Young-chul, so he asks, to which Hyun-sung clarifies that he should keep living like trash in the future, remain idle onlooker on the students' matter, bury them even though he knows it is wrong, but only the subject will change. From now on, he will do it for him, and prevent this incident from exploding, regardless of the means or methods. And if he follows his instructions until the day he graduates, he will never reveal his secrets. With this, he knows what Hyun-sung means. Still, he is a coward, so he bows his head, telling Hyun-sung that he will try his best. After that sweet interaction, Hyun-sung stepped out of the office and is now walking down the hall, while thinking of his plans. and that Kim Young-chul is only the first card he thought of beforehand, so he must hasten to prepare the next card. However, for now, there is something he must do. Meanwhile, Jung Min-ho is having a tantrum inside his classroom, thinking he is the shit, not realizing he is just the shit of a human being, while threatening Hyun-sung loudly, knowing he wasn't around, acting all tough. And since he knows that Kim Young-chul has been receiving money from his parents, Jung Min-ho assumes that Kim Young-chul would expel Hyun-sung, so he is sure that he won't have to come across Hyun-sung, and he won't have to wrap his head around him anymore, because to be honest with himself, he was scared shitless. But still, to prevent others from doing the same, he acts up and throws a table across the room to threaten everyone, because he thinks he is the predator of the school, so he will never allow his status to plummet into the abyss. After all the tough guy act, he sits down, still thinking he is the shit. Therefore, he tries to convince himself that what happened must be a coincidence, so if he meets Hyun-sung again, he is sure to destroy him easily. But before he could fool himself, Hyun-sung opens the door and calls him out, shocking Jung Min-ho immensely, while Hyun-sung tells him that they should finish what they were doing. With Hyun-sung approaching him, Jung Min-ho realizes that he fucked up, and soon after, his face connects to Hyun-sung's fist, completely knocking him to the ground, and as soon as he looks at Hyun-sung again, he only sees a demon approaching him. But before he could react, Hyun-sung's feet were already on his face, and before he could faint, Hyun-sung pulls him closer to strike him consecutively, preventing him from saying anything. Even asking for help was impossible for him right now, while Hyun-sung is enjoying every moment of it. Now seeing Hyun-sung's reaction, Jung Min-ho realized that Hyun-sung is a lunatic. Receiving multiple strikes to the head, Jung Min-ho was hoping for someone to save him, so after looking everywhere for it, he saw Kim Young-chul looking at them through the window. Therefore, he was convinced that this was going to be over soon, but to his surprise, Kim Young-chul just feigned ignorance of the situation, and then to add to his hopelessness, Hyun-sung advises him not to expect the slightest bit of help, because no one in this school will ever help him. Before this happened, 5 minutes ago, Kim Young-chul was frantically shaking in his chair, at the same time, in deep thought, and because of what Hyun-sung has just said to him, he tries to convince himself that this incident is beyond his abilities. Of course, the school wouldn't want the situation to escalate. Still, if he doesn't punish Hyun-sung properly, the parents of the victims will make a fuss about it. Jung Min-ho's parents, in particular, will never turn a blind eye when it comes to their son, and since they are wealthy people who own several residential complexes and are well-known figures of Daesan, they didn't spare any financial support required by their school. The school renovation was recently finished through their donation, since their subjects specially handled by the principal. There is no helping that their influence must be strong. More than anything, the biggest problem is that he received money from them too. Once they begin to make shit out of this, even someone like him won't be able to do anything. So with all the problems stacking up against him, he panicked, while thinking of a solution. Therefore, he came up with a solution by separating Jung Min-ho from this situation, since Hyun-sung has yet to mess with Jung Min-ho. So if he just convinced his parents, they might sit on the sidelines in this particular case. After all, those brats are only friends of their son. If he finds Hyun-sung and requests him to at least not mess with Jung Min-ho, it won't be the worst situation yet. Finally having a foolproof plan, Kim Young-chul didn't hesitate to run and find Hyun-sung, but as soon as he arrived at their classroom, he realized that it was too late. So when Jung Min-ho looked over at him, he just feigned ignorance, because he knows that it will be over for him once his relationship with the English teacher was revealed. Now in the present, Hyun-sung wasn't done dealing with Jung Min-ho, while he was still enraged, because he remembers them looking down on him, bullying him daily throughout the 3 years of high school. These bastards used to blame him, telling him that he is in this mess, because he was so weak. However, looking at them trembling like this, when he has barely started, fills him with more rage, because now he has no choice but let go of Jung Min-ho, to avoid killing him instantly. After this, he went over to his seat, and looked at Jung Min-ho's state, to look at how idiotic Jung Min-ho was, and he did all that, knowing if he just didn't mess with Jung Min-ho, the rest of the guys could be covered somehow. But if he were going to choose his opponents in his revenge, he wouldn't have punched Park Min-chul in the face the moment he returned. Rather, he would have chosen to live a peaceful life while avoiding those bastards. However, after going through his hell-like life as a vegetative patient, he only dreamed of intense revenge, and this was the result of it. And with this, Hyun-sung knows that there will be an uproar soon. As the principal who said he would make Bright Prospects High School a prestigious one, he would try hard to punish him for this incident. On the contrary, dozens of witnesses saw him as covering this up. He won't be able to stop it even if he tries to. And if he can't handle even the Bright Prospect High School in the first place, he won't be able to dream of the revenge he is trying to take. So this is only the beginning. Soon after, the faculty staff gathered, with Hyun-sung sitting across the table, to talk about what happened. The principal then stated that he wouldn't tolerate this incident. He then asked the teacher if they saw the faces of the victims, to which they said they did. So they agree on each other to punish Hyun-sung about this incident. But before the English teacher can continue her statement, Kim Young-chul nudged her to stop, because he knows it will be the end of them if Hyun-sung got expelled. So to avoid that, Kim Young-chul stepped up to tell them that is true that Hyun-sung was in the wrong, but through his observations as the homeroom teacher of Section 1, the cause of the incident was the victims, including Park Min-chul. Hearing Kim Young-chul disagree with them made the principal confused. Therefore he asks to clarify, to which Kim Young-chul did, and explained to them that there are a lot of students that say Park Min-chul's gang bullies the students on a normal basis, so he was planning to catch them on the act and punish them accordingly. But student Hyun-sung must have been unable to endure the bullying and did what he did in the end. He then adds that student Hyun-sung was a victim before he was a perpetrator. If they punish Hyun-sung like this, they will be doing something that a teacher shouldn't do. But even with this, the principal tells him that a punishment is inevitable. With how the principal react, Kim Young-chul has no choice but to answer back. While they are getting heated up, the principal is doing this because he was well aware that Jung Min-ho's parents won't let this matter slide. So to relieve their anger, he must stamp on the perpetrating students. If he aimed to make the Bright Prospects School a prestigious institution, he must hold tight his ties with the powerful. Therefore, with this belief, he decides to convene a review committee 1 week from now, and they will decide on how they will punish Hyun-sung in that meeting. And he orders the teacher to control this issue, so that the rumors about this don't spread. And also he declares that student Hyun-sung will be suspended until the review committee meeting. After giving the orders, he advises Hyun-sung to think about what he did wrong, while he doesn't appear at school. After that he must come to school with his parents in 1 week. But this outcome only made Hyun-sung even happier, since all of this was according to his plan. He then stood up and left the place, but before he could go back to his class, Kim Young-chul caught up to him and explained to him that he did his best and get to his good sides. However, this pathetic gesture of his only made Hyun-sung laugh at him and think less of him even more. But still, Hyun-sung tells Kim Young-chul that he knows he tried his best, and after that he confronts him about knowing from the beginning that Park Min-chul has been bullying the students. So Hyun-sung looks at him with disdain and advises him to always remember, until he graduates from this school, he must always do his best for Hyun-sung's sake, regardless of the means or methods. That is the only way he can stop him from speaking up. And of course, he is also going to tear the English teacher's life to pieces too if he failed. Still, he assures him that he will keep his word. With this, Kim Young-chul has no choice but to accept his fate. Hyun-sung then went on his way, while gritting his teeth, because if it were just up to him, he would really love to destroy him. However, Kim Young-chul is not his true goal, so he can't throw away a useful card right away, just because of his anger. At least, he needs him until he lays the groundwork at Bright Prospects High School. 1 week from now is the time he has been thinking and planning about for the past decade. Once this time passes, the principal, Dae-hwan, will be surprised about a situation that will unfold, completely different from what he is expecting. A few moments later, Hyun-sung is walking down an alley towards their house, a Scanian multi-residential complex, which would only cost 50 million won. If it weren't for the insurance money they got after his parents' death, they would have been living here on rent. When he heard that his grandmother had to sell this place for his hospital fee, it was like the world was falling apart for him. He used to think this place was shabby, but now he is just thankful he has a place to live. Hyun-sung then enters their house, calling out for his family, in order to meet them after many long years. However, no one is there to greet him. Now he remembers his grandma used to work daily at this hour, and he then realizes that if he wants to help his family, he doesn't have time to be sentimental. It's a miracle already that he got this opportunity, so he is not only going to take his revenge but also provide a good environment where his grandma and brother can live comfortably. And there's 1 week before the review committee convenes, so he knows that he has just a few days left to get his shit together and to organize his thoughts. He opens his notebook to list everything he has planned. Since his plans are clear, he knows that he must secure the surrounding territory to establish a base within 2 years and start clearing their stronghold during the sophomore year. In order to do that, he needs to meet 3 conditions. First is his physical strength to bring down those bastards who lead school violence. He has to grow enough strength that won't make him fall easily, although there is a way to train himself. But that guy, if he can just rope in that guy on his side, it will bring him a huge advantage in the fight. The next condition is also pretty similar. The bastards he will be facing from now on are connected to a vast association, so if he has to deal with all of them, he should also have a group of people who share his goal. And that's the problem. Right now, he is merely a freshman. Even if he has a perfect plan, there is no way he can get his revenge on his own. With this, he knows that he must position the pieces on the game board he made and gather the people he needs. And last but not least, a problem he can solve only because he knows the future. He should have a background that can reduce all the problems into nothing in order for him to execute the plans properly. At any rate, to solve the upcoming problem of the review committee, the paramount condition is having a background. At a later time, inside the police station, a white-haired man is causing a scene because of the situation that he was in, and using his status, he threatens them, and just in case they don't know him, he loudly introduced himself, which the officer knows very well that he is Go Changbyeom, the eldest son of the Myling Jean Construction Company, and a mighty figure of Dezen who can screw their lives if they do something wrong. But right now, even he has to act cautiously since the company is in the middle of selecting a new heir. As such, they have no choice but to follow due process of law, and it's a better course of action than being pestered by the other side for letting it slide. While Go Changbyeom is troubled because of what happened, and he is here at the police station since a bastard started a fight with him, and he had no choice but to reciprocate. It was not his fault that those bastards were so weak that they had to be taken to the emergency room, but he knows that if things go wrong, he is sure the bastards who oppose him will capitalize on it. And with this, he knows he really fucked up this time. He is taking this matter seriously, because recently, his father made the formal announcement regarding the onset of the succession war between him and his brother, the outcome of which will determine who gets his position. A war between him, who has barely graduated from high school, and his brother, who has graduated from a prestigious foreign university. His brother even married the daughter of a prestigious family 3 years ago. As such, his brother has a much firm position right now, and if this case is publicly revealed, he will really be falling down the cliff. The officer then tried to calm him down, explaining that it'll be challenging for them to let such a case slide, which Go Changbyeom was furious to hear this and tried to explain his side. However, the officer still didn't believe him. There wasn't even a CCTV at the crime scene, and since he didn't have any proof, they had nothing that could deny the victim's testimony. With this, he could only look away as he cursed about the air competition, and with him turning to look away, he noticed a kid's presence. Now he wondered why there was a kid in this place, but to his surprise, this kid states that he came here to testify what he is claiming. A few moments later, the police officer is sweating like crazy while reviewing the recording that Hyunsung gave. He then asks Hyunsung how did he get this, because, just like Mr. Go Changbyeom said, the bystanders started swinging their fists, and no matter how they look at this, it was them who tried to pick a fight against Mr. Go Changbyeom, who was just walking by. Hyunsung explained to them that he coincidentally witnessed it, and he noticed there wasn't any CCTV around, and because the testimony from a minor was not sufficient, he requested for the footage from the black box of a nearby car. Hyunsung then declares that this gentleman tried his best to get out of that situation, but those people were persistent, and that's why he had no choice but to fight back. If there is something wrong with what he did, it's only the fact that he was so strong that he knocked out those people in a single punch. This is clearly self-defense. Amazed by Hyunsung, Go Changbyeom backed up his claim, while he had a smile on his face, because his father believes that people should be beaten when they deserve it. As long as he has a witness and proof, there is no reason for him to be in a predicament just because of this case. So with this, the officer declared that this matter is settled, and after the offenders are treated, he would call him back. He then tries to save his ass by telling Go Changbyeom that they regret the inconvenience they caused him, and they should have listened to him and probed this matter thoroughly, and they failed to be impartial after seeing the victim's blood. But this bullshit wasn't effective to him, telling the officer that's his problem, so he will make sure to remember that face of his, and tells him that he will have a bright future ahead of him, and just look forward to it. After that was settled, Go Changbyeom and Hyunsung are now outside the police station. He then tells Hyunsung that he could have been really screwed if it wasn't for him. So he, Go Changbyeom, ain't someone who forgets the favor, and gives him money for what he did, which Hyunsung happily accepts, while Go Changbyeom is amazed by this, because normally, kids of his age are reluctant to take such a huge amount of money. But not only did he look for CCTV, he even found the black box video. However, his thoughts are interrupted by Hyunsung asking him if he thinks all that was just a coincidence. This question confuses him, so he asks to clarify, to which Hyunsung gets straight to the point, and tells him that he knows who he is, and what circumstances that he was in. With just this, he was ready to beat Hyunsung to the ground, but before that, he asks who he is, to which Hyunsung tells him that he has proof that can prove that this wasn't just a coincidence. He was confident of his information because Go Changbyeom was a famous man around their place, and thanks to that, he remembered what's happening right now in the Myeongjin Construction Company and his family, about how they lived until now and how they ended. And with this knowledge, he tells Go Changbyeom if he really feels grateful, he asks to give him an hour, and he can promise him that it will be worth his time and his future. In a change of scene, they are now inside a cafe. Hyunsung showed him the original copy of the black box to Go Changbyeom. Since he could prove it was self-defense using just the later half of the video, he didn't show them the first half. The first part that he is watching is what happened to Go Changbyeom, a definite proof that it was not coincidence. 30 minutes before the incident, 3 men gathered in front of the convenience store. At first glance, they may look like customers just using the convenience store, but even though 30 minutes had passed, they didn't move an inch and stayed there, as if they were waiting for someone. The moment he arrived at the spot, they blatantly started a fight with him, as if asking to be hit. They moved their faces forward and let out some curses. Go Changbyeom tried maintaining his composure, but he punched first in the end. It's fair to say that Go Changbyeom must have been suspicious about this himself. The recent series of events are happening as if someone intended to, as soon as the successor race commenced. Since then, only bad things have been happening to him, one after another. With all this, Hyunsung asks him what if all of this was planned by Go Chang-suk to undermine him. Whether accidentally or intentionally, be it any of those, the severity of the problem differs greatly. To be honest with himself, he was suspicious, but he didn't want to find out that his younger brother, who grew up well, would commit such a nasty deed. With these revelations, he asks Hyunsung what his motives were, while Hyunsung is taking a sip of his tea, remembering all the things he knows. Myeongjin Construction, it's only acknowledged in the countryside as of now. But based on their solid capital and technology, they would succeed in apartment branding. Thanks to Chairman Go Myeongjin's philosophy that you should never play with houses that people live in, they reduced the margin and increased their completion rate, and later put the name of Myeongjin Construction in the ranks of large conglomerates. But in that process, both the sons disappeared. The crisis would start with Go Chang-suk. From this point on, not long after, an incident that shook the grounds of Daesan, to the point that even he, who was suffering from school violence, knew about it. Go Chang-suk was aiming for the position of the successor and did all sorts of things and ended up being discovered by Go Changbyeom, his older brother. The angry Go Changbyeom punched his little brother just like that, and through that blow, Go Chang-suk became permanently disabled. Furious about this, Go Myeongjin announced that both of his sons were incompetent, so he wouldn't hand over Myeongjin Construction to them. And this caused an uproar. So at one point, digging up the activities of the two sons became popular enough to be posted as memes on the internet. Thanks to that, he was able to trace his memory and find that location. Anyways, due to that, Chairman Go Myeongjin hired a professional manager, which led Myeongjin Construction to rise to the ranks of conglomerates. To be honest, For Myung-jin Construction's sake, it'll be good for the future not to change. Although the eldest son, Go Changbyum, isn't so evil to cut down his competitor, but he's an incompetent person with a typical nasty temperament. The second son, Go Chang-suk, is a vicious person who does everything regardless of morality to achieve his own goal. It's only right for Myung-jin Construction to cut out both sons for their own sake, but that's not really important to him. To Hyun-sung, their usefulness in his matters is more important. What's right or wrong, what kind of butterfly effect will happen once the future changes, that kind of thing isn't his business. It doesn't matter even if the future changes for the worse through his choice. In this life, revenge comes first, and he is going to take care of his family. So with his resolve, Hyun-sung tells Go Changbyum that he will help him, so that he can take revenge on Go Chang-suk, and so that he, the oldest son, can become the chairman of Myung-jin Construction. Hearing his bold claims made Go Changbyum laugh at how ridiculous it was, but before he could undermine Hyun-sung's validity, Hyun-sung tells him that he knew there were people who were helping him in this succession race, but what he found strange is, the people who are assisting him are merely filling his ears with sweet things, while a mere high schooler like him can decipher Go Chang-suk's plot. So it's obvious, those people must be Go Chang-suk's informants. Hyun-sung adds that he won't ask him to believe, all he wants is a chance, the chance to build their relationship on trust. Now stressed out, he went outside and decided to smoke for a little bit, while thinking about what to do, but before he could do that, he was disturbed by a staff in the cafe. Therefore, with bloodshot eyes, he tells him to fuck off, or else he will just destroy this cafe. While Hyun-sung is just looking at him from a window, in deep thought, since he is with Go Changbyum, someone who lived carelessly since he was born as the oldest son of Myung-jin Construction. He was famous for being known as a time bomb that should not be touched in the land of Daesan, but he didn't approach him because he was a righteous person in the first place. It's because he's moderately a rotten one who would destroy his brother for the sake of power. That's actually why he determined that he was the suitable person for his plan. Meanwhile, Go Changbyum realizes what this brat said wasn't wrong, and compared to his brother, he doesn't have anything, and at this rate, it's obvious that the successor position would be stripped away from him powerlessly. However, in this situation, is it right to believe the words of a 17-year-old, who he has only met the first time in his life? But then, he remembers what his father said to him, telling him that, if he has no skills, then keep those with skills beside him. Don't fret about their age, gender or situation. If he keeps those who have the skills he needs by his side, he will be able to lead Myung-jin Construction. Finally remembering those words, he followed his guts, and went to Hyun-sung, ordering to tell him his plans first. He will hear it all and make a decision. Meanwhile, Go Chang-suk is informed of what happened. Therefore, he becomes furious, and throws his phone to the ground, while cursing because this is the fault of that geezer's old-fashioned way of thinking, as he asks why does he still think the eldest precedes the inheritance rights, when they are in this time already. He then tries to calm himself down, because he still has the upper hand here. At this rate, if nothing in particular happens, the successor position will naturally be his. But before he can think clearly, another call rings. Therefore, he picks it up, only to be shocked by the news that his wife has broken into Han-sung office tel. At the same time, Hyun-sung is telling Go Changbyum that he needs to be aware of reality to win this succession race. So he asks him, between him and Go Chang-suk, who he thinks suits the chairman position of Myung-jin Construction. Of course, it is Go Chang-suk. Unlike him, who barely graduated from high school, Go Chang-suk studied business administration at a prestigious university abroad, and he got married to a prestigious family as soon as he returned to Korea. Afterwards, he instigated that those he recruited should fairly decide on the successor. That way, an official succession structure has been formed. Nothing has been a coincidence from the beginning. Go Chang-suk has prepared a lot in order to steal his brother's position, and as a result, he's created a very clear advantageous position for him. Except for the fact that he, Go Changbyum, the older brother, there's not a single part where he exceeds more than him. On top of that, he has a lot of cases and accidents like this one. So who in the world would support him? Hearing all these facts laid out to him made Go Changbyum furious. However, he couldn't deny any of it, so he just shuts up furiously. While Hyun-sung continues, stating that, even after taking into account such differences, he does think that there's enough possibility for him to win. With that statement, Go Changbyum cooled down and was intrigued, so he asked to clarify, to which Hyunsung explained that, even when Go Chang-suk is clearly at the advantage for this succession race, there's only one reason why Chairman Go Myung-jin would make him compete for it, and that it's because of the naive thought that the eldest son would still desire to become the successor. That's why he can compete, even though the difference has grown to such an extent that competition itself is not necessary. Chairman Go Myung-jin has yet to clearly select a successor. And if that's the case, what if Go Chang-suk, who is superior to him in every way, falls to the bottom, where he is now? With just this statement, Go Changbyum realizes what he was saying. Finally on the same page, Hyunsung asks Go Changbyum what does he think will happen. If he has the same skills, who would Chairman Go Myung-jin choose between the two of you? So that's when the competition begins, when he stands on the same level as the opponent. At that time, the only strength of being the eldest son will be the class that he can never turn upside down. So if he wishes to win the succession war, he needs three things. First is background, and he has already lost in this aspect. When Go Chang-suk was busy making alliances with the prestigious families of Daesan through marriage, he was busy making connections with useless people in the red light district. Next is the second one, reputation, which there is no need for him to explain Changbyum's reputation as the asshole of Daesan. So they are left with the third thing, ability. While Go Changbyum was hanging out with women and enjoying alcohol, Go Chang-suk was proving his worth through accomplishments in the business. Go Chang-suk doesn't need to be special, because whatever he does, it will be better than what Changbyum does, which Go Changbyum was pissed to hear about, but since it was all facts, he could only look away. Then Hyunsung states that, from now on, they are going to overturn these three things, so they go back to discuss the first thing, the background. Now Hyunsung asks what they should do to overturn it, because it's not like he can marry a prestigious family like Go Chang-suk right away, nor can he gain such authority or clout out of the blue, so they have to think of it the opposite way. In order to do that, they have to separate Go Chang-suk from his wife, because once the support of his wife, the pivotal figure in the background, disappears, Go Chang-suk will be back at the same starting line as them. With this plan, they are all set to accomplish it. So a few moments pass by. The brothers are now inside a building with their father, and Go Chang-suk is apologetic about what happened, to which their father, Go Myung-jin, can't accept his apology, while calling him a pathetic bastard. And as Myung-jin looks at him with disdain, he tells Chang-suk that he has contacted his father-in-law, and this old father of his told him that he would teach him a lesson so that things don't escalate to the point of divorce. And Chang-suk's wife asked him to tell Chang-suk that she will be staying away for a while, because she is going to see how he makes it up to her. Hearing how his father lowered his pride for him, Chang-suk was about to apologize again, but Myung-jin had enough of that, because he had already reminded them several times that if the man plays around with his PP, the family falls. So if he was going to play around with a bitch like that, he should have rather done that as a single, like that fucking Changbyum. So it looks like he screwed up raising his children. After that, he confronts Changbyum next, asking him why he was going in and out of the police station, which Myung-jin was sure that Changbyum would keep claiming that he was innocent like he used to. However, he didn't expect Go Changbyum had already planned to subvert his expectations, because, before all of this happened, at the cafe where he was still with Hyunsung, Changbyum excitedly assumes that he has to look for Chang-suk's flaws and point them out to his dad, which Hyunsung tells him that it would not work. He is sure of it, because when he was comatose, he heard a documentary about Go Myung-jin, and that Chairman Go Myung-jin knew all about what his two sons were doing. And of course, he also knew Go Chang-suk was making devious plans to bring his older brother down. However, Chairman Go Myung-jin said it was also a way to get things done, and as such, he didn't stop Chang-suk. With this, Hyunsung knows that Go Myung-jin didn't prioritize clean conduct as a criteria for selecting the successor. Even if his successor's private life and conduct were a little dirty, he wanted them to be someone who could contribute to the development of the company. So he is sure that Go Myung-jin's heart would not be inclined to Go Changbyum, just because he starts pointing out Go Chang-suk's wrong deeds, and he would rather put a professional manager in charge. And if Go Chang-suk's disappointing appearance remains the same, bringing his enemy down to his level won't fetch him the chance of becoming the successor. Therefore, Go Changbyum needs to display an attitude befitting the position of the chairman. He must prove that he has changed. So, Hyunsung tells Changbyum what to do. With this, Changbyum apologizes to his father, while also promising him that he would be careful not to let something like this happen again. And since he knows that it is not enough to move his heart, he doubled down by bowing his head, while stating, whatever the reason was, it was wrong for the eldest son of Myungjin Construction Company to cause such a problem, and from now on, he will be mindful of his position and think before he acts. And so he asks his father to let him scold Chang-suk further for what his brother did. With just this action, the dice have been thrown. Therefore, to Changbyum's surprise, his father tells him that he heard they were the ones who picked a fight with him, but he did his best to avoid fighting. So Myungjin tells him something that he never told his sons before, saying to Changbyum that he did well by taking care of the problem, so he is proud of him. After that, the brothers are now outside their dad's office, while Chang-suk can't help himself but curse, as he states loudly that he doesn't know who told his wife the location of the hotel, but if he catches that bastard, he is going to tear him into pieces, while looking at Changbyum's direction. However, his threats were not heard by him, since Changbyum is just too stunned by what he just heard from his father. The same father, who used to be always strict, acknowledged him. He also patted his shoulder, complimenting him that he did well. Now that he experienced it firsthand, he was determined for it to keep happening from now on. At a later time, Changbyum is now inside his car with Hyunsung. He then thanks him for his advice, and because of it, he was complimented by his father. Now that he believes Hyunsung's words to be legit, he asks to tell him what must he do to become the chairman, because he will listen to anything he says. Hyunsung responds, telling him not to get too excited, since the only thing they did was to bring Chang-suk back to the starting line of background, and to become the chairman, he has to win the other 2 rounds. He has some plans, but it's hard to execute them right now, so for now, he tells Changbyum to join the company as a minor employee and learn how things work. Then, he will tell him the plan when the time is right. Which Changbyum questions it at first, but since he witnessed Hyunsung's advice work flawlessly, he willingly accepts. He even states that he would do anything he tells him to do. Now that Hyunsung is willingly cooperating with him, without questions, he tells him that there is one more thing he wants him to do, which he immediately asks what it is. So Hyunsung tells him if he remembers the conversation they had in the cafe, and that they are working together because they both have things they want from each other. For helping him, Changbyum promised to grant him his wish. Changbyum tells him to just spell it out, because there's nothing he won't do for him. Hearing him say this delighted Hyunsung, so he told him what he wanted. The next day, the review committee has now commenced. The mother of Jung Min-ho, named Kim Sunja, slaps Young Chol, while calling him a fucking bastard, and because he just let someone beat up her son, she is more than willing to humiliate him, and if he does not expel the bastard who did it, she assures him that she would get him fired, to which he responds that he understands. With this, she leaves him, while Young Chol's having an existential crisis right now, contemplating what to do. He then goes over to convince Hyunsung to apologize, for him to avoid getting expelled, and it is the only way to minimize his punishment, which Hyunsung outright tells him that he does not want to, and he adds that he understands Jung Min-ho's mother is pressuring him. However, he asks him, if would he prefer that he disclose his hush money, or cheating on his wife. With this, he understood that if Hyunsung falls, he will fall with him. Soon after, Young Chol went inside the review committee room, while the principal was already having a conversation with Jung Min-ho's mother, telling her not to worry, since he got this situation under his control. Young Chol then sits on his designated chair, while thinking, he is doomed, because whether he becomes an adulterous husband or a corrupt teacher, there won't be a place he can stay in Daesan. So now he could only ask himself, what can he do with all the money he saved? However, all his thoughts flew away when he saw the man, who was with Hyunsung. Afterwards, the committee meeting starts, and in order to inform everyone about what happened exactly, the advisor of the perpetrator, Kim Young-chol, was required to explain what happened. Therefore, without a single moment passed, he stood up while exclaiming that the cause of this case is too clear, and that the bullies of this school, including Jung Min-ho, first started harassing their classmates. So he declares that this is an absurd case, where the attacker is being treated as the victim. He was sure about his decision, because before all of this happened, he recognized the man, who was with Hyunsung, and he was sure that it was the man he saw in the red light district, which means Kim Hyunsung's legal guardian is the eldest son of Myungjin Construction. When he saw the list of the attendants, he thought it was a different person with the same name. Go Changbyum is a tycoon, while Jung Min-ho's parents can't even compare to him. Now questions filled his mind, asking himself how such a man become Kim Hyun-sung's guardian. But since he is a man of commitment and pure greed, he knows that he doesn't have enough time to think about this, because what's important right now is to find a way to survive. He is the only one here who knows that he is the real Go Changbyeom, so it's his only chance to switch lanes. Now in the present, the principal can't believe what Young-chul has said to them. Therefore he asks him to clarify and tell them precisely what happened to avoid misunderstanding. He obliged, so he told them that for a long time, he was receiving a lot of reports claiming that Park Min-chul's group was harassing their fellow students. At first, he adequately scolded them not to do such things anymore, but as time passed by, their harassment started getting worse. A few days ago, Park Min-chul was bullying student Lee Jungmin and Kim Hyun-sung, who watched it happen, and as he looks at Hyun-sung, he understood that he must sell his story to the fullest of his capabilities. So with his heart, he told them that Hyun-sung asked them to stop. They were classmates after all, and he tried to stop them with pure intention. But Park Min-chul called his friends and started threatening Hyun-sung. He then turns to everyone, trying to convince them to think about this, as he asks if they can stand still when someone tries to harm them, because student Kim Hyun-sung was just protecting himself. The incident involving student Jung Min-ho follows the same logic. After arriving to help Min-chul, the front line of Park Min-chul's group, student Jung Min-ho assaulted student Hyun-sung as he tried to defend himself. In order to not get beaten again, student Kim Hyun-sung had no choice but to take action. He knows that his way went a little far, but even after knowing what exactly happened, if they only punish student Kim Hyun-sung, they will become grown-up scumbags who ignore the fundamental problem of bullying in school. With this, his performance concludes, shocking everyone who heard it. Even the principal couldn't believe it. So in order to render the statement of Young-chul invalid, he tells him to not get out of the point here, because they were just talking about this heinous incident in which 4 students were sent to the hospital first time in the history of this school, and the information that the victims started the bullying isn't confirmed, and it has nothing to do with their current topic. Whatever the perpetrator's reason may be, violence can't be accepted. On top of that, he has never heard about a student doing something this brutal. With just these few words, the table has been turned, and now Jung Min-ho and his mother is grinning as if they have won already. Then the principal continues his speech, saying that they all are alumni of Bright Prospects High School, and it makes his heart ache terribly to choose who did wrong. But punishment is necessary. In order to stop an incident like this from happening again, they must find out what exactly happened and punish the perpetrator properly. They should do that to help the parents of their students, who have entrusted them. The Bright Prospects High School can go home with peace of mind. So first, he tells them to hear from student Jung Min-ho about what happened, since the victim's testimony should be more accurate. Therefore, without hesitation, as if he was born for this specific situation, he started to tell them, while shaking in trauma, telling them that what he experienced is completely different from what that teacher had just said, because when he was walking by, all he saw was Kim Hyun-sung beating Min-chul, who was already down. He asked the other students, and they told him Kim Hyun-sung had just started swinging his fists without any reason. They can get another witness to validate him. While Hyun-sung couldn't believe the audacity of this bitch, Jung Min-ho then continued, saying that it was the fact that Kim Hyun-sung was the one who started the fight. He is only telling them the truth. When he saw his friend was getting beaten, all he did was run towards them. But without hesitation, Kim Hyun-sung raises a weapon. Of course, he is sure Kim Hyun-sung was threatened as many people rushed towards him. But Min-chul was in such bad shape that they didn't have time to think about how Kim Hyun-sung would feel. Honestly, he doesn't understand why a teacher would blame this all on them. And that's only part of what Kim Hyun-sung did, because after the teacher scolded Kim Hyun-sung, he didn't know if it was because that upset him, but he came to look for him again and beat him again. He didn't do anything, but he beat him in front of the others too. After all this, he asks them if it is really his fault, while covering his grin with his hands. And to further convince everyone, the mother of Jung Min-ho stepped up, as she used her acting ability to its maximum potential. She asked them, how could this happen? A violence happening in the school. So how could she understand this? It happened only to her son for now. But they won't know when this might happen to the other kids. They, the parents, shouldn't just ignore this. They have to punish the bully. With this, the other parents agree, believing nothing can justify hitting someone like that. So now everyone is in favor of Jung Min-ho. Meanwhile, inside the hospital, the 3 goons are passing the time, while they believe that Kim Hyun-sung is being screwed right now, because of the temper of Min-ho's mother. a soccer mom who flips over the school for manhwa. They are sure that she would not let things go easy after seeing her son's face end up like that. Then Ming-chul got a bright idea. As if he didn't just receive the beating of his life, now he has the audacity to think if Hyun-sung doesn't get expelled, he will harass him until he cries and begs. And if Hyun-sung gets expelled, he is going to keep chasing him to ask for indemnity. With this, they are thinking of the future, where they have it easy, not realizing what's in store for them. Back at the review committee meeting, Go Changbyeom expresses his scorn. Now that he is pissed, he doesn't hesitate to curse at them and tell them to talk about what actually happened while calling them bitches. He then asks if they are all going to ignore this, or do they really not know anything, and don't they think that a demon with the face of a human planned all this to happen, to which the principal was triggered by it, ordering him not to call their student a demon, but Go Changbyeom does not care, so he asks the principal what he should call a demon if not demon, because he has personally looked into this Park Min-chul's group, and they have been harassing, robbing, and stealing from the other students. They are quite famous, so famous that there isn't a person who doesn't know him around here. So he asks the principal why he is trying to cover up his mess. Could he be that stupid, or did he take a bribe from those bastards? And he knows that several ambulances came to the school because those Park Min-chul group guys fell down, but all that happened because Hyun-sung was trying to defend himself. His advisor also mentioned that they have to look into the fundamental problem of this case. And let's all be honest here, when they were young, did they just stand still when those kinds of thugs beat them? Hearing all this, Jung Minho's mother could not let it slide, so she called him a fucker, and asked him who the hell he is, because she heard that Kim Hyun-sung doesn't even have parents, so who the fuck is he to talk that way? To which Go Changbyeom could only grin, since he knows he is going to wreck this bitch's whole career in a few sentences. Before all this happens, inside the car, Hyun-sung asks him to become his custodian, and that is because, in order to defeat an enemy with a lot of things, he too should have a lot of things. Among the things he needs, there is one thing he can get only from Go Changbyeom, and that is power. Hyun-sung decides to be honest with him, so he tells him that he plans to cause many problems in their school, not just some minor skirmishes that are a common occurrence in school, but accidents big enough to cause legal problems. And every time that happens, he is hoping he will back him up and help him solve the problem. With him on his back, Hyun-sung is sure at least in Daesan, no one would be able to lay a finger on him, and if he can do this properly for him, and show something that can satisfy him, he will promise that, no matter what he has to do, he will make him the chairman of Myeongjin Construction Company, or maybe something even higher than that. To which he responds, telling Hyun-sung that he doesn't have to worry about that, since he is great at those kinds of things, and whatever he does, hit someone or do anything else, it won't even be a problem. With this, he proudly introduced himself to everyone that he is Hyun-sung's custodian, and the eldest son of Myeongjin Construction Company. Hit that like button and thanks for watching.